Look, everyone! It's the princess!
Hello there, friends and enemies. If you've been a fan of YouTube poop, you've probably heard of the Seedy Eye Zelda games.
My boy.
And if you've ever thought to yourself, I wish they would make more games like this, you're in luck. Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore is a 2D platforming adventure game with animated cutscenes that is a spiritual successor of sorts to the Seedy Eye Zelda games. The game was developed by Seedy Eye Software and released on February 14th, 2024 for the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. As soon as Arzette was announced, it was a game that I got really excited for. Being able to see someone be inspired by the Zelda Seedy Eye games and make their own version of the game really spoke to me for whatever reason. I ordered a physical copy of the game. Physical copies were distributed by Limited Run Games, so I got the game a few months after it had officially released digitally. The game was also released alongside a physical Switch controller that acted like an original Seedy Eye controller, and unfortunately I didn't get that controller, so I didn't get to experience this as it was intended, as an original Seedy Eye game. Nevertheless, I did 2 playthroughs of Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore, and had quite a bit of fun. So if you've been thinking about picking up the game, let's go ahead and talk about it. One of the most notable things about Arzette is that for the most part, the controls are very tight and responsive. There have only been a couple of times where this was an issue, and it was mainly when attempting to turn around really fast. The game wouldn't really register my button presses. There is also the very slight inconvenience of, after interacting with a character, it does take a few seconds of a cooldown before you can interact with them again. If you try to hit them immediately after talking to them, nothing's going to happen. While these 2 things can be the slightest bit annoying, they aren't really game-breaking and don't really affect my gameplay as a whole, in my opinion. You get a good number of weapons and upgrades throughout the game that feel good for the type of game that Arzette is. Some weapons can be versatile, the main example being the bombs, where if you throw them onto the ground, it takes a little bit of time before they explode. But if you throw them at an enemy, they will explode on contact with that enemy. It's also worth noting that resources that you get throughout the game are kind of hard to run out of. You gain rubies really easy, which you can use to go to the shop and buy things, and overall just getting other resources that you need is pretty easy. The only time in which resource collecting became hard for me was in my second playthrough, where I kind of attempted to see how fast I could get through the game. This resulted in me not having enough rubies to buy the amount of things that I needed at any point in time. It also resulted in me sometimes pressing the wrong button, which would use up a resource which I knew that I wouldn't be picking up latently, I would have to buy later on. The enemy variety in Arzette feels really good. You've got all types of small, medium, large size enemies. Some move, some don't, some throw projectiles. It feels like a very good enemy selection for the game and makes you feel like when you're fighting them kind of flawlessly that you are picking up some sort of skill. The map and the menus are also pretty simple and easy to use, making gameplay not be as frustrating as it could have been. The story of Arzette is pretty straightforward and simple. You play as Princess Arzette of Faramore, and you are going to defeat and recapture the evil Dimer. Nothing really notable to say here. It does feel like they have thought out the story and sort of planned around having the world feel filled out, which I think they did a pretty good job of doing. The characters are all written really fun, with Arzette herself being just a explosion of attitude all over the place. She really has a help people type of demeanor with a take no shit attitude. You can really tell that the voice actors and writers both had a lot of fun in the story making of this game.
I once even heard of a hero finding a cooked turkey leg in a wall. Oh, whoa.
Arzette's art style is very striking. First we have the opening cutscene of the game that happens before you even get to the menu, and it looks like it's kind of drawn by either crayon or colored pencil, and it looks really nice. Getting into the game, all of the backgrounds are painted and they look very good. They make the world feel nice, and everything is kind of detailed in a way that makes it feel like it's been thought out. The sprites for both NPCs and enemies work really well with these painted backgrounds, and a lot of the sprites have really good animation to them. Speaking of animation, the cutscene animations are very good and very fluid, and at points in time they seamlessly flow 2D and 3D animation together. You can very clearly tell that some points in time is just a 3D Blender model of the character with a 2D mesh put over it, but it feels like it works in the context of the game. Arzette's sound design feels very meticulous, with an incredible amount of attention to detail. There are very small sounds that you kind of don't think about, but when they do happen and you're paying attention to them, you realize, oh, they actually did put a sound in there for that. They've also added in some cartoony sound effects to certain cutscenes or actions, which give the game a more comedic feel, making you understand that this game really isn't meant to be taken super seriously. You're just kind of meant to have fun with it. On top of the sound design and meshing in with the animation, the voice acting of Arzette is really good. The voice actors really put their all into these characters. There are some characters where their voice recordings sound a little bit weird sometimes, but overall it's not that much of an issue, and I feel like they did a good job of capturing Seedy Eye Zelda's originality of having characters sound like themselves, but also having certain characters that kind of have a weird voice to them. And I feel like that works in the game's favor. The game's music gives off a vibe that I can only really describe as video game adventure music, but it feels really good. Sometimes the tracks sound kind of the same-ish, but I think they do a good job of having a similar consistent sound throughout the game, while also making each map have a distinct music profile. And yes, each map, including the overworld map, has its own musical track, which feels very good and makes each level feel like its own distinct thing. I had a whole lot of fun with Arzette, and you can tell that the people that made the game were very passionate about the game they were making. I'm not going to say that it was the best game of all time, but it is a very fun game. Overall, Arzette acts as a modern mirror that takes a look into the past and replaces what could be construed as mediocrity with love and passion. If you like adventure games that are short, sweet, fun, and have a lot of hidden collectibles that you can find throughout the maps, Arzette is the game for you. That being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you liked what you saw here about Arzette, go pick up the game. It's really fun. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, drink your water.